Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Now for today's video, I'm going to review a few historical romances that I've binge read recently. Now, I realized that a lot of the powerhouses that used to publish a lot of historical romances have really stalled and have really delayed the publishing process for a lot of these books. I feel like we're publishing less historical romances this year or last year than in the last couple of years. And what it has led me to do is it has led me to hoard a lot of these historical romances. Now, I'm mostly specifically talking about Avon romances. I feel like they publish a lot less than they used to in the last couple of years, which is very disappointing. And what I ended up doing was I hoarded a lot of the new releases from 2023, and I think one of them is an early 2024 release. But I said enough is enough, and I wanted to read them, so I've decided to binge read 4 in 1 week, and here are my thoughts and reviews of the latest books. And I want you to decide for yourself if they are worth your time or not. So I think the first book that I want to talk about is this one called It Had to Be a Duke by Vivienne Lorret. This was, I think, book number 1 in her new series called the Liars Club series. And essentially our heroine is kind of like a wallflower. She is looked down upon by the group of people that she knows, and she's always kind of picked out to be made fun of a lot of the times. One day she gets sick and tired of all the comments directed towards her, so she decides to lie to the group of people and say that she is actually already betrothed to the Duke. Meanwhile, our Duke is a very noble man. He likes to keep his reputation intact, and he is looking for a wife. But he hears about this rumor, and then he decides to do a noble thing, like a righteous thing, by helping her out with this lie. So they decide to fake date or fake court each other for a whole entire week. And it's during that week where they realize that they have a lot more similarities than differences, and they end up falling in love. Now, I feel like that this book had a lot of the elements to make it a really good enemies to lovers romance, or opposites attract romance, or just like an overall fake dating historical romance. But I felt that the execution had something left to be desired, because I felt that the pacing really impacted it. I felt like the pacing was just a little bit weird. It was slow in the beginning, and then our characters kind of like decided to go along with this fake dating scheme, but it didn't feel like it was a natural evolution to it. So it made me kind of lose interest in our characters halfway through. And then because I lost interest, I didn't feel like that there was enough strong chemistry between our two characters. And so that's why I gave this one around a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Now, the second book that I have to talk about is this one called The Duke Gets Desperate, and it's by Diana Quincy, and it's a part of her Sirens and Silk series. I think this is book number 1, and I've read another Diana Quincy novel before, so I was already a fan of her writing, and I knew that her books were going to be somewhat unique, and that it's going to be a lot different from all the Regency historical romances that you've read in the past. It involves characters of people of color from different cultures during a historical setting, and meeting and falling in love with people from like England. So this one involves our heroine, who is essentially already immigrated to America, and she is told that she has been left behind this grand castle and this really nice piece of land. And she has no need for it, but she is a businesswoman because she knows how to make money for herself. She knows how to not depend on a man. So she decides to kind of sell back the castle and the land to our hero, who thought that he was going to inherit this piece of land in this castle when his family member died. But what ends up happening is that our hero does not agree to it, because our hero is basically destitute. He doesn't have money in his estate, and the land itself and the castle itself is not functionable. Like, it's not something that can be run without like large sums of money. So our two characters have to think of a plan to kind of get their estate back up and running, and then they're not going to forgo everything that they've inherited. And then during that time, they are together in this like area where they are learning more about each other. They're intimate with each other. And honestly, I really like this book because our character was such a girl boss. It was because she's a businesswoman and she's been hurt in the past before, so she doesn't really trust men. But she is such a girl boss. She was so strong-willed. She was so smart with the way that she was like planning things. I also really liked learning about her culture as well. So this one, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm very excited to read more books by Diana Quincy. The next book that I have is this one from Charis Michaels called Say Yes to the Princess, and this is a Hidden Royals novel. I think this one's released in 2023, but it might have been already released in 2022. I'm not too sure. I know I had this on my shelf for a very long time. But this cover is just simply gorgeous. I love it so much. This one involves royalty. It's a royal romance. Our heroine is a princess from France, but then what ends up happening is like the France like kingdom falls, and then she's kind of like shepherded off into England, and she is being housed by like wealthy family friends. There she is with a bodyguard. Our hero thinks that he's just a glorified babysitter, so he wants nothing to do with her, but then obviously he is attracted to her because she's just so beautiful. She's genuinely nice. She's curious. She has a spunk to her that he really enjoys. And she likes feeling protected a lot of the times because she feels safe around him. She has past trauma. She has PTSD from like the fall of her kingdom and the people that she loved, like, and watching them die. So there's like that darker element to it. Now with Charis Michaels, I feel like me and her and the writing just does not get along sometimes. I feel like there's just so many different side characters that really hinder the plot and that really take away from like the romance between our two characters. And I feel like that a lot of the times that makes it very slow, and that makes it very hard for me to get absorbed into the story. And then because I'm not absorbed into the story, I can't really say that I like the chemistry between our two characters. Although I knew that he was attracted to her, I felt like also the pacing was a little bit weird too as well, because I thought he would hate her a little bit more, but then he was already absolutely infatuated with her from the very beginning. So that was kind of weird too as well. So this one, I gave it kind of like a low 3 out of 5 stars. I have other books by her in this series because the covers are just stupidly gorgeous. But yeah, we'll see if I continue reading the series or not. So the last book that I have to review is this one from Lenora Bell, and it's called You're the Duke That I Want, and it's from the Thunderbolt Club series. This is book number 1. I think there's only 2 books in the series, and the next book comes out later on this year. But this one I have put off for a very long time too as well. This one came out in December, and now it's May. But I really, really enjoyed this one. If you guys are new to my channel, you guys would probably not know, but I'm a huge fan of Lenora Bell. I love all her books. I've read all of her books, and most of her books I've given a 4 or 5 out of 5 stars for, and they are the ones that I would definitely recommend for readers who want just pure good romance. Now this one involves our heroine, who is a very bookish character. She loves reading books, she loves learning, and she loves like doing her little things in her little village that she lives in. The one thing is that her mother is stupidly overprotective of her. Like, I'm talking her mother is kind of like an evil stepmother in a way. I feel like she's just kind of like has her own way of thinking a lot of the times of how women should behave, how men should behave around women, and how to keep her daughter safe, which is like respectable, but then also I think she's overdoing it. So that ended up creating our character, or a heroine, to be very shy, you know, to be very like scared of society a lot of the times, and to be fearful of things, right? Because she's been raised in this environment where her mother's telling her don't do a lot of things. So what ends up happening is that she falls in love with a new stranger in the village, and she is just, you know, swept away. She thinks like that he's going to marry her. She thinks that this is the one, this is the happily ever after. And that's our hero. But what happens is that our hero is equally infatuated with her. Our hero equally thinks that she is like the perfect person for him. But duty calls, and he has to leave the small village and go back into London to take care of the responsibilities of the dukedom, because now it's being handed to him. And he is kind of left in this mode of like trying to figure everything out, and he doesn't feel like that romance has like a time on his schedule anymore, because he's thinking about how to run a dukedom, how to take on the responsibilities, and there's just a lot of things on his plate. So she's left brokenhearted because she thinks that he ran off and, you know, basically just was fooling around with her. And then she has an opportunity to go into London to go find him. So she takes that opportunity and she meets him again, but he has turned into a completely different person. So she turns into this really strong woman. She turns into this girl boss once again, and she is just like the definition of what feminism is, because she no longer cares about him anymore, and it's really up to him to kind of like sweep her off her feet again and to make her fall in love with him again, because he does know that he has messed up. I think like towards the end is where it sold me a lot, was when we got to learn more about the broken relationship our heroine had with her mother, and then why her mother behaves a certain way, and then also learning about his backstory where he was like severely damaged too as well, because he had a very, you know, turbulent childhood where he didn't have a loving parent, nor did he have a loving brother as well, and now he's kind of being like thrown into this world that he doesn't want to be a part of. So I really enjoyed it. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm so excited to read the next book in the series by Lenora Bell. But that is it for all the books that I have read recently that are historical romance related. I'm very excited that I'm kind of back into this historical romance journey, and I know a lot of people that follow me love reading historical romances too. Currently, I'm reading The Perils of Pleasure by Julie Ann Long, and it's part of her Penroyal series, which is a very, very long series. I think it's like 12 books or something, and it's been on my shelf for a very, very long time, and I know that a lot of people have read the series already, so hopefully I get to stick with reading that series, and then you can see more content from me reviewing parts of that series in the meantime. But that is it for today, and I'll see you guys again next time in a new video. Bye.